Commander Eyal Pinko. Commander Pinko is a holder of Israel's Security Award, Prime Minister's Decoration of Excellence, DDR&D Decoration of Excellence, and Israeli Defense Forces Commander-in-Chief Decoration of Excellence. He is a retired Navy commander who has served in the Israeli Navy for 23 years, during which he has been performing operational duties, managing developmental programs, and has been commander of an intelligence branch. For 5 more years, Commander Pinko served as a head of division at the Israeli Prime Minister's office, with civilian rank equal to Rear Admiral. Since 2017, he is a senior consultant for intelligence, cyber and security at the Israeli National Cyber Directorate, and to many defense and homeland security companies from all over the world. He holds bachelor honors degree in electronic engineering and 2 master's degrees with honors in political science and organizational development. His PhD on military and naval asymmetric strategy was obtained at Bar-Ilan University in Israel. And before we start, let me point some technical details just for the event today. The presentation of Commander Pinko will last around 40 minutes. For the comfort of all the participants, your microphones during the presentation shall be muted. The webinar will be recorded, so if you have any concerns, you can just switch off your cameras. At the end of the presentation, we will have 15 minutes Q&A session, so you can leave your questions in the chat section. Depending on the time, we will get in as many of your questions as it is possible. And just before giving the floor to Commander Pinko, I would like to thank you in advance for your time, your interest and presence tonight, and to thank you to all our dissemination partners from CPTERA. I would like to thank for the attendance of the President of the MSR, Colonel Amir Goren, and Vice President, Mr. Avner Saar. And here, I would like to pay special respect and sincere acknowledgement for the attendance of Admiral Sunil Lamba, PVSM, AVSM, and Chairman of the National Maritime Foundation and former Chief of Naval Staff, and of course to Vice Admiral Pradeep Chauhan, AVSM and BAR VSM, Director General of the National Maritime Foundation, as well as special thanks to all esteemed guests from the National Maritime Foundation India, which is the foremost resource center for development and advocacy for strategies for promotion and protection of India's maritime interests. It's our honor to have you here. Commander Pinko, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vanya. So thank you very much of being here. I'm appreciate that and very excited about that. So Admiral Lamba, Admiral Chauhan, Colonel Goren, thank you very much for being here once again. And I truly hope that the next 40 minutes will be interesting for you, and you will I can reveal as much detail as I can about the topic. I'm going to speak about and a little bit of humor that will be here and there. I will speak about the biological warfare at a short glance, just to set the idea, the definition, what is a biological warfare. Then I'll go deeper into the Chinese biological warfare plan or program, which is being here for many dozens of years. And last but not least, I will connect the dots, or connect the lines, and speak about the coronavirus and China. So I would like just to address, or to say a small remark about that. I will speak only about facts, nothing more than facts and estimation and things concerning those facts. But I will not speak about conspiracies, no politics. It will be a pure academic presentation. And thank you for your time once again. So let's dive in. The only conspiracy I will speak about is the conspiracy of the Simpsons family, which was predicted the coronavirus 10 years ago, something like that, about cats and bats that are spreading viruses all over the world. So this is the only conspiracy that I will speak about in the next minutes. So if I try to dig in, what is biological warfare, to say or to understand what are the roots of biological warfare. So I just pick up some examples from the past about about the use of biological warfare. So there they are. The first case is the Scythian are the Turks' ancestors, and when they went to battle 600 or to 200 before counting, they used to take the arrows with snake's poison, and in this way they can be more effective to kill the enemies in more effective way. But going by the years, the Greeks and the Roman all used biological warfare means like poisoning wells and rivers with snakes and corpse, which has a plague, a corpse of animals and corpse of dead soldiers. They used that in order to conquer as fast as they can lands and cities, and it was a pretty much a large amount use of plague. After that, running through history, the Prussians, French, Italian, Spanish, many countries, many nations used plague and other means of biological warfare in order to conquer as much as they can, as fast as they can, to be more efficient in killing the enemies. It's something that was through the human history, it was pretty common to do. I think one of the amazing stories is the story of the Mongols from the 14th century, when they tried to attack the sea, all the places which now is today is Romania and Bulgaria. They tried to conquer cities over there in the west part of the Black Sea. So what they did, they took soldier corpse with plague, throw them into rivers, into wells, water wells. And what amazing in that is that the 3 years, the next 3 years after that, a third of the European population just died from plague. So it affected the human beings in Europe for many years after the war with the Mongols. Another examples are the Brits, when the Englishmen, when they came to America, and they sold blankets with smallpox to the Indians, trying to conquer them as fast as they can without to minimize the casualties from their side. And they just intentionally sold blankets with smallpox. And if I may say that speaking about the Renaissance, if it's a good word to say about biological warfare, being a little bit cynical in that, but the Renaissance period of the biological warfare was the Cold War. A large amount of production and developing in 16 countries all over the world, from the Czech Republic, Russia, China, of course, United States, and many Australia even, and many countries just developed and stockpiled biological weapons in their storage and the bases in order to be more deterred, to be part of the deterrence they have with the use of biological warfare. I think the next case we all remember, the Anthrax envelope attacks during 2001, 2002 in the US. Some say it was an Al-Qaeda attack. We have no really official statement from the US government for that, but just remember what was the fear and the anxiety that it was over there because of those envelopes. So another example for biological warfare attack. And if I'll go through history, you know, I can speak about it for hours and hours, but there are too many cases in human history of using the bioweapons, and it was pretty common to use them all along history. So if we try to define what is a biological warfare, you know, just in academic point of view, I can state out that biological warfare is a series of deliberate war efforts. It's being deliberate. It was very focused, very aimed to do it. The aim is to disperse the biological materials, such as viruses, such as poisons, in order to cause disability or mortality through clinical diseases, infection. This is the aim, the purpose of the biowarfare, and its aims against humans and fields and corpse. you know, from the ancient history times, the aim of biological warfare was against humans in order to get more mortalities. But if looking through the period of time in the last decades, I can say from the end of the Cold War, the new branch of biological warfare that is against fields, against corpse, is being developed in very enormous pace. And another thing that is very important is that the biological warfare or the biological weapons are cheap, relatively easy to produce, to carry, disperse, and even to storage. So you have a cheap weapon, easy to produce, and many states say that the biological warfare, biological weapons, are the poor states' nuclear weapon. So it can cause very large effects of mortality and disability. I've spoken with someone that is professional in biological warfare from the biological point of view, and he said, look, if you want a very good weapon, you have to do some kind of damage that is more than 90%, more than 80% of population will die. Not like in the coronavirus, which is, if I remember correctly, the numbers, look at the worldwide perception, it's something like 7 to 8%, taking into consideration China and the US. But if you look at another very important issues, which is the next slide, is that the biological warfare causes or affects, the most important from in my perspective, is the effect of panic and fear that it causes. And you look what happens in our countries all over the world, we are pretty united in that. It severely affects the economy, the trade, the security. It affects the governance. And we in Israel, for example, we feel it very well. So besides getting or achieving mortalities and all, it affects the economy and the governance, and in this way, the biological war is very important to the one who use it. So this is to define the biological warfare as an academic definition. Now diving into China and the Chinese biological warfare program. If I try to understand, try to figure out what are the elements or what are the bases for the Chinese biological warfare, and there is a biological warfare program in China, I can say or can state that it stands on three elements or based on three elements. The first element is the understanding or the memories of China from the Second World War, which more than 2,700 Chinese soldiers died from Japanese bioweapons program. The Japanese, with the cooperation with the Nazi regime, established Unit 731. It was a very, they call it hell on earth. It was a unit which examined, developed, produced biological weapons and tested it on the Chinese soldiers, not only on the Chinese soldiers, but also on the Chinese population. And you can see here a sketch from those days. The Japanese used to go with the Zero aircraft to fly with that and to throw bombs and bomb shells with biological weapons on the population, of Chinese population in China and Manchuria. And by that, trying to realize and to check the effect of biological weapons. This stays very in the Chinese state of mind. They remember those events from the Second World War, and it goes till today in the Chinese minds. The second one is the Chinese claims about the usage of biological weapons by the United States against China and Chinese and Korean forces during the Korean War in the 1950s, start of the 1950s. And as the mark that it left, like the Second World War on the Chinese perspective, This is also a second element that affect the Chinese perspective or Chinese doctrine, why to implement or why to develop biological warfare. The third part is the understanding what can be caused, what can be done with the biological warfare, is the cooperation that China had with the Soviet Union, with the former Soviet Union, conducting experiments with plague and anthrax and cholera in Mongolia, experiments that went from the Second World War and beyond, really until the fall of the communist bloc. So China was part of the Soviet Union experiments, and they understood more and more those days the effect on what they can achieve of using biological weapons. During the 60s, China is developing, focusing on defense measures, how to be more protect, how to be more immune from biological warfare. But during the 70s, something is happening in China, and they are, with the Russian assistance, they are trying to develop offensive weapon. Feeling being secure after developing, the defense measure. Now they start to develop offensive weapons, and we'll elaborate some more in the next slide what kind of offensive weapon they developed and still developing. If you're trying to understand why they are developing biological weapons, I think that part of the reasons is to, or part of the look into that is to understand the Chinese doctrine, what they call the non-contact warfare. And we can see many proofs of this doctrine in many other activities that China conducts. For example, developing long-range missiles that can hit the US Navy far away from the Chinese coast in the South China Sea. For example, cyber attack capabilities that they are developing and use. This is a concept that comes from the Second World War and from the Russian perspective, how to conduct a war far away from the Chinese shore, or far away from China lands, in order to be, or to secure their property, their territory, and to achieve their sovereignty. So the use of biological warfare is part of doctrine, the non-contact warfare doctrine, that enables China to be more secure and to conduct war far away from the borders. And if we try to look, I will look for some evidence for that way of thinking. I put here a few examples for that. You can see here, for example, this doctor from the 3rd Military Medical University, which published a book. You can buy it on the internet. It's from 2010. It's the war for biological dominance, how to be more dominant in the biological arena, another arena which they think they have to fight and be, they have superiority in this domain in order to achieve the goals of China. Another example is this guy that published in 1999 report. You can see here this journal. That you can have this article, "The War Without Rules: How to Do War When Biological Warfare is, crossing the borders and playing the war without rules." Another example is an article that was published 2005 in a military review of the US Army Military Review, with a colonel from the PLA, the People Liberation Army, and another scientist from the Biological Research Center, which speaks about the non-lethality of biological warfare, which, as you understand, those days it's not really true. But how to be more dominant, how to be more effective in developing and producing military weapons, biological weapons. Sorry. Another one is the Major General which was the president of the Academy of Military Medical Science from 2015. Another publication that says how to be more efficient, how to produce, the importance of producing biomaterials, and even producing biomaterials which allow or enable China to brain control their adversaries. Last but not least, it's example from the Chinese Amazon store. Unfortunately, it went out of stock a few months ago, but it's from 2017, a retired general, a former president of the National Defense University, who speaks about the domain, the necessity to be, to dominate the battle or the military battle through or use biological weapons. So those were examples of books and articles that were published by Chinese and speaking about the importance of biological weapon, biological superiority in the battlefield. So in 1973, the BTWC, the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention, was established after 3 or 4 years of speaking with many nations that came to the table. On the BTWC, something like more than 160 nations are signed. Of course, China didn't sign this agreement. So China didn't want to sign this agreement, but in 1984, after almost 11 years, China joined the convention of the UN with that, and deny any kind of occupation or anything concern biological weapons or biological warfare that is being conducted on China's land. But according to US intelligence reports, 1993, China is operating 2 biological research centers under the command of the Chinese military. This is a US intelligence report that was published. And even President Clinton, 1995, said that China holds offensive biological weapons. And during those years, many years, the US was the loud voice of the UN committee that says China is operating biological research, they are developing, they are stockpile biological weapons, and not only for defense, but also and mostly for offensive use. 1999, and a Russian defector that went from Russia to the US said that the Chinese lab in the city of Wuhan that everyone is already familiar with, said that an incident was occurred over there in those labs, an accident which was in HIV, germs went out from the research center and spread in China, and said that China was developing biological weapons all over and for many, many years. 2002, to be accurate, in October 2002, China declared in BWC that it had never developed, manufactured, biological weapons of any kinds, include biological materials that could be dual use. So China said, we didn't do anything, we're not doing anything, we're not doing any kind of activity concerning biological warfare. But as the fate gives us the idea, a month later, pretty much not long after, November 2002, the SARS outbreak starts in the city of Wuhan, the same city which the coronavirus started. So look at the advertisement in the time of the SARS, the new age of epidemics, can it be stopped? A very, the fear was all over from the SARS. But if I try to see what was the cases in SARS, only 29 countries was infected only, because we will see the results from the corona. In China, 350 died out of more than 300 all over the world, and more than 5,000 cases in all over the world is more than 8,000. So it was panic over back then, but if I try to compare it to nowadays, we can see, this is from yesterday night, but the cases, something like an hour ago, it raised up to 2 million, and the amounts are pretty amazing. Almost 900 countries with infections. So the coronavirus is much more worth in point of view of the cases it caused. So in 2009, China is backing up and says and declares that only one biological research institute in the city of Wuhan, of course, is being operated. And what is being operated is to treat epidemic cases if any kind of event will occur, if some kind of outbreak will be over there. So it's only for defense issues. But as a matter of fact, if you look who is the supervision, who commands the institute in Wuhan, so it is under the supervision of the National Security Council, and the one who's commanding and giving money to this institute is the Chinese military. So the Chinese military is the one that gives money, is commanding that, and they're doing everything there to process and to manage all what is going over there. My computer start, yeah. But if you look in the US intelligence community reports to the Congress in the last years, in the last 10 years or so, so you can see that based upon intelligence community reports, which are being published, everything here is being published. You can see that there are at least 7 other sites in China which are doing biological weapon research and production. And one I would like to show you in the last line here, that there is a warhead integration facilities in the city of Yan'an, which is not only producing it, but it's also integrated into bomb shells in warhead, missile warheads, and being look at it as a whole package of weapon system. So what is being produced by the Chinese? Many different kinds of bioweapons like Anthrax, SARS, plague, of course the coronavirus, which I will show you in the next slides, and many other viruses and bad things they are producing over there. May I just ask the one that was with the open mic just to mute it? Thank you very much. I will mute it. So if you look at the coronavirus, I just show you the efforts that the Chinese Biological Research Institute are doing. So let's see about the coronavirus. So the coronavirus start to appear in academic publication from China in 2011. I will show you screenshots from articles that were being published in the internet and in other journals, saying that in China they discovered the red gene. It's a gene came from bats, and based upon this gene, they took it and made engineer it that it will be more efficient, more appropriate to be a virus. And you can see here in the Nature Medicine journal, 2 articles that were published by in 2015 by many engineers and many scientists from the Wuhan Institute, and saying that the bad virus starts as a gene, and from there they engineered it and made it more efficient, more good, that it will be a virus as a weapon. So you can find many of those publications in the internet. Even though I heard that the Chinese government tries to get rid of them in the internet, but I got them a month ago, so I've got them, and if someone would like me to send it over, I can send you those articles. It's very nice articles speaking about how to engineer the bad virus in order to be more efficient as the coronavirus weapon. And speaking about the Wuhan laboratories, it's not the first time like the coronavirus was spread all over from this institute. You can see the HIV in 1999. You can see the SARS in 2002. And here also some kind of outbreak that came out of the Wuhan laboratories. So we all experiencing now the outbreak that came late 2019. and I truly hope it will be behind us in the next few weeks. I truly hope so. So how China gained knowledge in order to develop those kinds of means to develop biological weapons? I will state three major things in that. First is academic research, include cooperation, very good cooperation that they have with the US, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and other countries in Europe in order to develop biological weapons undercover, which I call them. Sometimes it's undercover, sometimes it's not, but it's deliberate research with a lot of money, a lot of money that all brought over there by the Chinese government in order to develop the knowledge base for that. The second one is how to get supply, how to get ingredients, how to get all the needs. The Chinese logistics wing, division of the PLA, of the Chinese military, is operating a medical group, the 999 medical group, which is in normal basis. It's they are buying medicines, they are bringing medicines and all the infrastructure for the civil, the normal, if I may say, medical supply. But besides of that, they are in undercover supplying all the infrastructure that is being needed to develop biological weapons. Last but not least, of course, it's industrial espionage. Only 3 months ago, the US Department of Justice just published, and I have all the details of that. If someone will want them, I can send you over. They arrested one US professor and 2 Chinese nationals after doing espionage, industrial espionage, and develop biological weapons. 2 of the Chinese nationals that were doing research at the Harvard University tried to escape from the US. One of them is a colonel in the PLA. He managed to escape, but the other, a captain in the PLA, he was arrested by the Department of Justice, and he had in his case, they found 12 small bottles with ingredients to biological warfare. So this is, of course, what the Department of Justice published last January. And of course, cyber attacks, part of the Chinese way of thinking, as I said before, part of the non-contact warfare doctrine. So if I may wrap up everything and try to, before questions, I will just try to wrap it up and to light a few things that I would like to say. First, I spoke about it before. The BIOWAR is based upon non-contact warfare doctrine. It's very based doctrine, and biological warfare is part of the large doctrine, of the Chinese large doctrine. The second one is it's being based on national traumas in the Second World War, in the Korean War, and this is part of the reason that the Chinese are developing biological warfare. Thirdly is the production and development is under the radar. They're trying to hide it and say we are not developing offensive measures, only defensive measures. But I think that things show us differently. To conclude about the coronavirus is an engineered gene that taken out of bats and being developed as effective virus in the Wuhan laboratories. There are many rumors about the Chinese that deliberate spread it all over. My own belief says that it's a safety fault or some kind of human error, not a deliberate action by the Chinese government, but this is my own perspective. Well, I think we will not know the right answer. Either it's some kind of medicine or an antidote for the coronavirus. I think my own belief is that they have some kind of that helps them to go back to normal life. As we said, as we understood a week ago, something like that, things are going back to normal in China. Another thing is that many newspapers and researchers said that the coronavirus is the black swan. Black swan is a term that differs or say that it's a surprise, total surprise, something that we didn't anticipate that it could come and could be. I don't think it's a black swan. It's not a surprise. If you're trying to look, as I try to show you in my presentation, if you're looking at the Chinese way of operating since the World War II, it's not a surprise that they are developing black swan. It's biological warfare. It's over there. It was over there in the last decades. So I'm not thinking it's a surprise. And last but not least, China is not alone. China is not the only one that producing, developing biological warfare. We can see Russian claims about the US in 2018 about that the US is developing secret biological weapons. And we know about the North Korean biological weapons and the Iranian biological weapons being developed. And I think it's although there is a BTWC, countries still going on and developing biological weapons. So what can we learn? My last slide. What can we learn about that? First, that the psychological effects of the biological warfare are very important. You can cause death or mortality in small portion, but the psychological effect, the effect on the trade, the governance is in very large dimension. Secondly, in the globalization era, controlling the disperse of a virus is very, very limited. You cannot really control it, especially when you move by sea, by the maritime transportation, by aerial transportation. People and goods are moving all over the world. That disperse is being very limited. Controlling it is very limited, sorry. If you are already developing biological warfare, it's really good to develop antidote because you don't want to harm your own people as it was in China. If I look at the biological weapons, so it is really an attractive weapon for poor countries, for terrorists, and it's a really it may make deterrence if it will be by the hold of terrorists. Looking at Al-Qaeda, if it is Al-Qaeda who spread the Anthrax envelope during 2002 in the US, it is really deterrence. So understanding that what can be done by biological warfare, it's a pretty attractive weapon for terrorists. I think that the BTWC should be more tightened and be more, not every 3 years, and reports that are pretty not in large scale. I think it should be more tightened by the UN. And the good news for the startups and for the engineers, but I think that more and more biotechnology startups will rise, and we'll see many of those in the next future. So please, if you have any question, I will be glad to answer. Thank you very much for your listening to me and for everything.
Yeah, a quick question from my side. Will this presentation also be available for review?
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, okay, great. Good. And then just another quick question on the last comment. You said it's good that there's a lot of biotechnology startups coming. How is that? How is it beneficial?
How is it beneficial? First, for your two remarks, my full article will be published in the next day or two, so you can have also my article with the full quotes and everything.
Oh, great!
It will be my honor. Thank you very much for that. And secondly, I think that biological or biotechnology that helps humanity to be more healthy and to overcome any kinds of outbreaks in the future if they'll come. And I'm a very pessimistic guy in those issues, only in those issues. So I think it's something that we have to be more technology to help us to if any kinds of issues will come.
So would I be correct in understanding it would help us kind of in a kind of antidote way, in the sense that we'll be able to find you know, a resolve to these kind of outbreaks in a faster fashion, a quicker manner, let's say?
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Another question here is, how are you looking at the ways to bring China on the table, hold them accountable? I think it's a very large, thank you for the question. I think it's a very hard question. I think we cannot forecast the next week or two. We only have to look at the next day or two. So it's a matter of time until countries will be able to recover and to go to full capacity. And I think until then, we will not be able to understand, to forecast what will be with China or to the relationship with China after that. So I'm trying not to forecast that because I don't really know. About the regulation, as someone here is also asking about the regulation, I think the BTWC should be more tightened, should be more control on countries in order to control the usage, the storage, and the development of biological warfare. I do believe in that.
Hi, I'm Commander Anand, DD, NMF. Are we looking at some kind of legally binding regulations? Because now world has, you know, experienced, and probably in an international arena, if we push forward for a legally binding, treaty, there'll be a lot of people who will rally for yes.
Yes, I think the regulation should be there is a regulation, but you know, countries, not all the countries signed the regulation, especially countries that are developing, like China, biological weapons. So it's, if all the countries will sign this regulation, the UN regulation, and will be under the control of the UN, I think it'll be much better.
See, my point is that now more than 150 countries have got affected, and everybody is biting and feeling the spike. So this is a very right time when the iron is hot, and probably we look for a legally binding rules and regulation. Many countries will support, and we will have something which is legally binding.
I totally agree. I totally agree. For the question here, another question is if it's deliberate or it's a fault. As I said before, I do believe that this outbreak from China, this is my own perspective, my own belief, is that the outbreak came out of fault or a safety fault, something like that, or human error. It's nothing that was deliberate by China. This is my own belief.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw one news in November. A Chinese doctor had alerted about this outbreak of a pathetic virus. So whether it was not taken seriously or it was intentionally to spread.
It's a very good question. Thank you for that. I think that humankind or countries didn't pay attention for this threat of biological weapons. The threat of nuclear weapons, of conventional weapons, of terror attacks are much more easier to speak about. It's more immediate threat. It's something that we can see, you know, if a country or a terror organization own a missile, we can deal with that. We can define the threat, we can speak about. I think that along the years, states and people really denied the existence of this kind of threat, and said it is not really a threat. We have medicines, we know how to deal with that, and we put it aside because the nuclear threat is much bigger. So I think that's the reason that everyone took it aside and didn't consider it as a threat. And there are many questions here concerning conspiracy, for example, about the pension funds of China and the US. I don't really know. I don't really want to deal in this presentation in politics or in other conspiracies. I'm trying to look only in perspectives of military doctrine, of perspectives. So why countries or why China wanted to develop a biological warfare. So please excuse me, I don't want to speak about politics and conspiracies, and I thank you for that. Any other questions? I will be glad to answer. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I just have one other quick question. I saw a very interesting number of books pass by, titles. I know about a book called Unrestricted Warfare, which was written by 2 Chinese Army colonels.
Yes.
I don't think I saw it in the presentation. Is there a reason why that wasn't mentioned?
No, just from time consideration. You know, I took only 4 or 5 examples. There are many more. I saw dozens of them, dozens of publication in many languages. I just pick a few of them just to pin out my my saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Vanya? You are on.
Okay,
You are muted.
Yeah, now I'm on. I see some more questions coming, but unfortunately we are out of time. So I would like to thank to everybody for the participation, and especially thank to you, Commander Pinko, for your interesting presentation and your valuable insights. We hope that this event contributed to a better understanding of the topic of all our participants. And dear guests, if you would like to attend more such events organized by the International Institute for Migration and Security Research, you can follow us on social media channels and follow the recent updates on our website, where you can find more articles of Commander Pinko and our experts. Once again, I would like to thank you for your attention, and stay home, stay safe, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You can send me emails with questions if you want. I will be happy to answer. My email appears here on the screen.
Thank you very much, everybody, and God bless us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Admiral.
Thank you, Eyal. Thank you, Amir. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Admiral. Goodbye,
thank you very much. And stay safe and stay healthy.
Absolutely. Be healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.